Hey YouTube, I got a question about the frame that I have underneath the sawmill, and the question was whether I had somewhere where the information for it was in my files of my YouTube. And I have to be honest with you, I did not really keep a good YouTube library, so I just make videos as people ask me to make them, and that's pretty much what I'm after. I did not get a chance to clean this up here yet, but I will. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some measuring here, and I'm going to get the measurements for where I have everything and pretty much why it's there. So let me measure that stuff and I'll get back to you. I'll show it to you as I go. Okay guys, I couldn't stand the sawdust on there. I had gotten a visitor and I got distracted and I didn't clean up here, and it drives me nuts when I come here after the next day to find that I didn't. And I've done it a couple of times, but I wanted to do it now. So anyway, that's what I used to clean up. Okay, so just I want to try and get the whole view of this thing if I can there. So imagine a square, or not a square, a rectangle. What I have there is 6x6s. Now, these are bought at the store before I poured the concrete. So they're 5.5 by 5.5 pieces of treated timber. The reason I put treated down is because I don't want to do this again in my lifetime. And that's all there is to it. That's why I use treated. Otherwise, you could use whatever you want. I mean, you could cut 6x6s on the mill if you wanted to. I had that done so that when I brought the mill here, I just set right up on it. Okay? So the point is I have two 12-footers. This is a 12-footer, and then there's a 12-footer on the opposite side there. Okay? So in other words, this is a 12, and this is a 12. And by the way, the only reason I wear sweatpants is when I'm done for the day. And I thought I was done, but I wasn't. So this is 12 foot, that's 12 foot. And then up at this end, at the end of the 12, there's a 7 and a 7-footer. Now, I had cut the ends of the 12-footers off there, so they're not quite 12 foot. And the only reason I cut them off was because I wanted to be able to stand in here close if I had to, and not have my feet against, you know, or banging against this with my knees or whatever. It's bad enough that I bang this thing. Okay, so the material list then for the cribbing on the bottom: two 12-foot 5x5s, okay, two 8-foot 5x5s, okay, and then these pieces, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them that are cut 3 foot long. Okay, the 6x6s on the bottom there. Now, if you look, you'll see, like on this edge here, that I don't have the 6x6. I have the 6x6s slightly overhanging the, you know, where I have the runners going. The 6x6s on the bottom there. So in other words, these 6x6s here, the short ones, let me just back up here a little. The short boards are about an inch on each side hanging over. Now here's the thing. What I'll do is I'm going to go to the center roughly and I can give you the outside edge, it doesn't matter. From outside to outside, this is 33.5 inches. Okay, so in order to set the LT15 on it with these pads here that come with it, you have to have these 33.5 inches wide from one side to the outside of the other. Okay, and then like I say, these are 36 inches. So you remember the 33.5? It's 33.5 all the way down there. Okay, and these are 3 foot long. Right there. That's a 3-footer. Okay, and they're all 3 foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3-footers. Okay, and whatever I had to cut and waste from 8-footers or whatever, that's what I did. I'm not worried about that. It's not that much. So that's what I have so far. Now, when I put I actually have anchor bolts. You can see, I believe here, that are in the center of these beams. Let me show that to you. So you can see there's 2 anchor bolts in there. One right there, and then one right there. Now I have these angle irons here to help me hold this, but I actually have them screwed. The 6x6s on the top are screwed to the 6x6s on the bottom, and that was pretty sturdy. But I noticed sometimes the mill would move, so I wanted to put these angles here. But you can see from the winter, from the freezing and thawing, it actually pushed the nails out. Unbelievably pushed them out. It's not from moving the mill. Okay, so you can put screws in there. One of these days I'll pull them out and put screws in, and it would be better to have screws. But anyway, all I did was I took the 3-footer, put it over top of the bolts, and then I set 33.5 inches. You know, I centered the 36-inch piece on the bolts. And you need to put the bolts so that they're straight. Okay, there's another set of bolts there you can see, and there, and all the way down those bolts that are in the center of those. So I'll give you a measurement for that so you know what to do with that. So I'm just going to holler the measurements off to you here so you got what I'm telling you. So if you're going to pour concrete or whatever like I did, you can do it that way. You don't have to do it that way. You can do it any way you want to. But I'm just showing you. I'm just going to show you what I did. Alright, so I'm giving you measurements for the anchor bolts now that are going to hold the 6x6. Okay, so starting at 0, so in other words, wherever you want to put your first block, this would be where the anchor bolts, the distance from one set to the next set. So the first distance here is 54.5. So from that 0, where those 2 bolts are, 54.5 inches up is the next set. 80.5 inches is the next set. 136 is the next set. 161 is the next set. And then the last set here is set at 217, which is 18 foot 1 inch. So that's how I have the boards laid out. Now the reason I put those boards like that is because everywhere I have a cross board is where one of the collars or one of the plates rest. So in other words, wherever the sawmill rests, it's resting on solid wood from the grate or from the bunk rails down to the concrete. Okay, so that gives you a nice solid bed. So that's the distances from the end of the mill, and it's different if you turn and go the other way, so at least I think it is. So just take it from the end away from the sawmill and work your way through. Okay, so you got those measurements. Now, the other thing is when you lay that out, when you lay those anchor bolts out for yourself, and you can use any kind of bolt. You could actually drill into the concrete if you wanted to. I came here and I went 16 inches apart. So the bolts are the measurements I just told you, plus they're 16 inches apart, and you want to go 8 inches from the center. So this is 36, so 18 and 18, which is here. Oh, let's see that, which is here. So roughly you're looking at 8 inches, 8.5 inches, say 8 inches, 16 inches is good. So 8 inches on each side is where you want to put the anchor bolts, right at the measurement that I gave you. So you start at 0, then you go whatever that measurement was, put 2 anchor bolts, and you need to have them in a straight line so that the sawmill is straight, okay? So put them in a straight line, make sure they're across from one another so that they fit into the 6-inch board. Now if those anchor bolts are off a 1/2 inch or an inch either way, you got 5.5 inches there to catch it. It's not really a bad thing. It's just that it's easier to put together if you put them all in the same spot, because when you drill the 6x6s, you won't get them on there if you're off, and then the 6x6s will be crooked. So that's what I have up there. They're all 16 inches apart up to the end. Now, what I did here, you want to take the 1, 2, 3, the fourth cross brace from this end. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In the center of that is where you want to start the 12-foot 6x6. So in other words, you set the 6x6 in the center of that, and don't forget what I told you. You want to keep them the same width, so they're 33.5 inches wide. So you take the 6x6 and put half of it on this 5.5 inch board, put half of it on that one, and let the rest of it go that way. So now, just to give you an idea, if I measure down here, I have 11 foot 8, 12 foot. You could still put 12 footers on there and leave them hang over. It's not going to hurt anything because they'll only be sticking out there about 4 inches. Okay, so those are 12 footers, and then on that end, you actually could put 8 footers up here if you want to. On this end, those two 6x6s could be 8 footers. I have them cut to 7 foot, and the reason for that is that's where basically my last 5.5 inch board that holds this up is located. Okay, so there's really not a lot to that. It puts all of the pegs or all of the legs from the wood miser, adjusting it a little bit back and forth. It sets all of them right in the center of the 6x6 and right over top of the 6x6 base. So 2 12-footers, 2 8-footers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3-footers. Okay, you're going to put the bolts 16 inches apart. You're going to put them 8 inches from the center, so that when you go to set the top 6x6 on, you don't have any real problems. Then all I did here then was just drill on an angle a bolt hole for a big drywall screw on both sides, and I just shot drywall screws in every one of them. And the drywall screws, guys, the drywall screws actually worked real well. They didn't give me any problem, but I saw the mill vibrating a little, and I just didn't want it to come off, because you're moving a great big heavy log on top of these rails, and sometimes if you have something swing and hit it, you could knock it off of there. So you want to be careful of that, because if the head falls, you don't know what you're going to bend or damage. So this is what I did. And then after I got these set up, I started leveling this thing up at one end. In other words, I set the first section down. The first section goes to about right there, 80 inches. I set that on top of the thing. I put a level on both side rails and on here, and I leveled this whole thing up by adjusting the screws or the nuts on those plates that hold this up on the legs, okay? And once I adjusted them and put it down, the next ones were easy, because all you do is bring the next end up high enough, and you can actually measure how far down you are on the big leg. Pretty much adjust them all loosely to that and set them up, and then you just adjust them better and then tighten them. I tightened them only one time. I have not had to do anything else to this except, like I say, I added those angle irons, and the freezing and thawing up here is so drastic that like I say, the nails actually pulled out of the angle irons, but I can put screws in there and fix that. So that's how I made that base. Now, if you're not going to use concrete and you're not going to bolt them down, you could, you know, make yourself a flat area out of stone or something, whatever you want, and try and level the 3 inch or the 3 foot, you know, boards here. Level them all up in level this way and this way to one another, and then just set your boards on top, bolt them together. But I find that having it bolted down to the concrete is much better, and much better way of keeping this thing still. And that's how I did it. That's how I like doing it. Doesn't matter to me how you do it. You can do it any way you want. You can set the legs right on the ground if you want to. That's what Wood Miser recommends. But I don't. I'm too old to be bending all the way down there trying to pick stuff up. It'll just kill my back. So I'm fine. I've been running it for 3 years and my back has been fine. You know, it's just I get sore now and then, but it's not like I have any real back problems. So anyway, that's how that's set up. And like I say, you know, don't go setting the 6x6 here out on the edge there. Leave it in so that it's 33.5 inches from the outside of one to the outside of the other. And those are, like I said, 5.5 inch by 5.5 inch timbers. And then all I did was set up on there and bolt it down. The best thing to do before you bolt it down to the sawmill through the legs is to set the whole thing up, make sure it's centered, adjust it whatever way you have to, back or forth, and then bolt the legs down. And all I did to bolt them legs down, I think you can see it there, was I put lag bolts through there. I think those are 6 inch or 4 inch lag bolts. I put one in every leg. Yeah, one in every leg. And that's all there is to that. And that's been holding up very well. I haven't had any problem. The concrete has not cracked because it's 6 inches thick. It's resting on 2B stone, which drains water away. Okay, so there's no lifting or shoving around in the wintertime from the frost. So that's good. The concrete is good. The boards are good. It's just those nails in the angle irons that started coming apart. I don't recommend that you nail the legs down. You should screw them down. You might want to drill a pilot hole in there before you put the screws in, you know, and that would be fine. I'm just saying that's what you have to do. And the legs already have holes in them. So in other words, where you see that bolt in there, in that leg there on the bottom, that round disc, that hole was already there. So, you know, they kind of make it a little easy for you. And that's all I did. And haven't had to touch it since. So, if you have any questions and you want to ask, you know, just go ahead and put them in the comments or whatever. The other thing I'd like to say is, I've been really super busy the couple of months where, you know, we were kind of not allowed to do anything or not allowed to really go anywhere with anybody. And really we shouldn't be doing that anyway since that virus is still going around. But what I'm getting at is I had slacked down with making metal parts because the gosh darn factories I was buying stuff from, some of them were not sending the part out. But just so you know, I make these dogs. The type I have here is a type where, you know, you don't lose them because they're drilled and tapped into this bolt. But I can send you the bolt, the handle, and this already tapped with a bolt so that you can just put them together. For a pair of these, it's $120 because the bolts are expensive. So, and I have to machine this thing. So 2 of these. You know, 2 of these, 2 of the bolts, and 2 of the handles there are $120. I also can make you the round wheels here out of plastic. I really don't have a price figured out for them. Nobody's bought any of them yet, even though I've said I make them. They're not hard to make. You just measure this one, and you can make these, and just put a bolt in there. It's not really that hard. And I also make the bevel siding cutters and stuff. So if you're interested, at bullseyemickey@gmail.com. bullseyemickey@gmail.com. gmail.com, you'll see, or you can write to me and then I'll answer you personally there. So, and then the other thing I had made was I made a tow board that cranks up with a crank, like it's almost the full width of the bed, which is right there. And I really like this tow board. I like it a lot better than what I saw they had at the factory, and I just think it works good. I don't always use it because a lot of the logs I throw on are not that heavy, and I can actually put my cant hook underneath there and pick them up and throw a 2x4 or a 1x underneath them, and that works just as quick. So sometimes you're after quick, sometimes you're, you know, not after quick. It all depends on what you want to do. But I'm just saying that's what I've been doing. So, yeah, if you're interested in anything that you might need for the mill, just write me an email, bullseye, bullseye, mickey, @gmail.com, and I'll respond to you on this stuff. It's a lot. I don't make it for a lot of money. I make it just to keep myself busy and keep my machine shop a little bit busy. Okay, so there you go with the base to this thing. Have a good one, guys. Bye.